Hi everyone, Tash again for my 7th video on my study planner development, and this is again another whisper quiet one because daughter's in bed asleep and she's been a bit unwell with croup, so she's coughing up a lung and my husband's banished into the bedroom on pain of death so he doesn't listen in on me doing this video and then me gaining all the nerves and all the awkwards and mucking it up. So I want to get these done tonight and send them off to Carrie. Now, I gave the last video on the getting things done in the A5 size of my Vonderspec Touch Me manager size, and I mentioned that some of the issues with some of the inserts, Kiki K, that I think they might be a half letter size, so I had to down or trim my A5 inserts so that they didn't overlap or protrude on the tabs, which was a bit of a frustration. But anyway, considering I had so much spare real estate on my inserts, and the planner itself's wieldy because it's an excellent planner, but it's 35mm rings, very big and bulky to try and carry around. It's not easily transportable. So I thought I'd go back to my personal size. And that personal size is also a Vonderspec Touch Me in standard, I think they call it. But anyway, so I went down and thought I would get myself some DIYfish version 3 S2. The reason I got these inserts is because I wanted to test out the horizontal weekly view that I had used in the Erin Condren Life Planner. I thought I'd see how that would work here rather than using a time schedule. That fell apart pretty quickly. So I tried to block them out into time segments, so 7 till 11, 12 till 4 in the evening, and then trying to cram everything in those areas, as you can see, is very clunky and clumsy and difficult to read and follow. This section here is very good. This part is blank, so I divided it into two, pertaining to my two subjects, as you can see here, 1016 and 3084, my study numbers, subject numbers. And then I used my task list or my next actions list in this area here. And I suppose you could still divide your next actions in their categories pertaining to colour, I suppose, or in this column here you could give a letter symbolising what they are. However, you may not need that considering this is a fairly short list that you would use. And as I stated, I used this for a short period of time and quickly became frustrated with it because it didn't assist me. I just couldn't use it. I couldn't brain it that way. I need a logical and chronological schedule that I can map out times, notwithstanding that I use my phone for my appointments as well. But I wanted to be able to see that on paper. So I stopped using that one. Buying trial versions on Etsy for DIYfish with these things is really good because it only cost me $15 Australian to try these out. So in short order, I went to version 3S3. So this is basically just the vertical version of the other one I showed you. And of course, this has the schedule. So as you can see, if I just zoom in a little bit, it goes from 2 AM to midnight. And then I just block off the areas that I sleep from what my actual day is. I stopped using these as well because I ended up going from too much real estate to not enough real estate. So these areas that I would use to put my, my subject tasks in became too compressed, and I had to abbreviate to the point where I couldn't make sense of what I'd written, and this area was supposed to be used for the next action list, and I just didn't end up using it. I didn't use this for long at all, actually. And you find if I've got multiple things on at the same time, it gets very crushed, as you can see, very difficult to read and follow. So I stopped using that. Afterwards, this is the same setup as I showed you in my A5 planner. That was just the A5 size of these that are impersonal. Now the problem is I I vacillate between A5 and personal because I can't decide. I actually like the size of A5, but it's just too big to carry around. I can't go smaller than personal because if you can see, put my hand there, my hand is actually the size of a personal, slightly bigger than a personal insert. And because I'm ham-fisted, when I write I take up the whole page, so with rings it gets in the way. Sometimes I was using traveller's notebooks, but I like to be able to pull pages in and out, and you can't do that with a traveller's notebook. You've got to pull out the whole book. So I can't go smaller. I can still manage to squeeze in some writing on this. It's quite just big enough for me to do that sometimes, but smaller inserts I just can't do. And also I don't get enough information on the page, so I get more pages and then it ends up being really, really thick. It just turns into a big brick, and you can't write on something that's two inches off the table. So I stopped using those. My next video will be on my return to version 2.2 with my current subjects that were just released yesterday that I've started to upload onto Evernote, and I'll show you how I've done that. But these inserts are just an idea as to whether you think that's going to suit you or not. It didn't suit me because I'm trying to coordinate multiple persons. If I've got my husband and Babs away and I've got stuff for my daughter to do, I run out of room on these inserts very quickly. So I need something a bit bigger, and the version 2.2 gave me daily view again, so I could do daily tasks and focus back on that. Even though I liked looking at the weekly view together, sometimes I found it a bit overwhelming if I had a massive things to do and all I looked at was all of my appointments and all of my things to do for that week, and I had nothing or no other way to break it down, so I would overwhelm myself that way, which is a bit of an oxymoron, considering the whole purpose of getting things done is you don't give daily tasks, so you don't overwhelm yourself with failure. That if you've got tasks to do that week, you don't have to do them on a Monday or a Tuesday. Just as long as you get them done by the end of the week, that's great. That works really well for mental health, I suppose, in a general sense. I tried that, but for me, I ended up overwhelming myself just with the sheer number of tasks to do, and I really needed to break them down for daily stuff, particularly when my husband's away for work and I have to manage everything, and I need to strictly run by a schedule that I do not go to bed until all of my daily tasks are done, because then they just pile up and become overwhelming the following days. I can't delegate them, can't ask anyone to help me out, it's just me, so that's why I need to break them down to daily things. Otherwise, as I said, I just get completely overwhelmed. So my next and last video will be on my current Evernote setup and my current version 2.2 in personal. Thanks guys.